Tabligh activities in Tamil Nadu. Hazrath Zuhoori Shah Noori, who received Khilafat from Noorul Mashaykh, centered his missionary activities in his own state, Tamil Nadu. He was interested in having cohabitation with his Sheikh, as the latter would often come to Madras. It was his habit in the midst of his Tabligh activities to often go to Hyderabad with the intention of living with his Sheikh. Whenever Noorul Mashaykh came to Madras and Kerala, Zuhoori Shah accompanied him. Meanwhile, he would often come to Ernakulam and Alappuzha for the activities of Silsila Nooriya. Heeding the strict instructions of Noorul Mashaykh, the Great One undertook Tabligh activities centered in Kerala. Then in Kerala, especially in Malabar, there was sublime increase in the spiritual realms of Malabar. He chose Krishnapeta in Tamil Nadu as the center of his activities. Among the first generation of people who received bayat from Zuhoori Shah included S.P. Abdurrahman, M.K. Abdul Hamid, Adire Shihabuddin, V.M. Ataur Rasul Bilali Shah Zuhoori, Maulavi Abdul Fattah Bakavi, Adire Kamal Hafiz Shakib, S.M. Abbas, and Aramanai Hamid. It was at the Fakir Labbai Masjid at Krishnapeta where he taught his Murids. One Yusuf Hazrat, the scion of a millionaire family and a renowned steel merchant, used to come to the masjid forsaking his luxury and riding a bicycle. The editor of Muslim Tirukural, Ghani Chishti, once remarked that the style of this prominent merchant, which expresses the simplicity and humbleness of Islam, had surprised many people. When scholars, merchants, officials, and many illustrious persons embraced the way of Suluk, Tabligh Jamaat activists came out in opposition. When they argued in public that there was no need of tariqah and bayat, he started to respond to them using the same style of reasoning. Under the lead of Zuhoori Shah, the Murid set out to all masjid for Tabligh. He selected Sundays and holidays for Tabligh activities. He would be the first person to appear in the masjid. He would meet the Imam of the mosque, seek his permission to lead Tabligh activities till the night prayer. And after the namaz, he would lead the public bayan, and thereafter talim and dhikr from outside the masjid. That was his method. The Tabligh activities made a sea change as many people started to link themselves with the suluk. At that time, the activities of suluk went on and on, centered on around 50 masjids in Madras. He did not bother about the oppositions and innuendos that others spread about the Tabligh activities. His guest taught to remain resistant against all odds, for the truth is to be specially mentioned. His activities in the mission for spreading spiritual messages were helpful to bring guidance to people. There are no believers who don't desire spiritual growth and sublimity. But as most don't know the true way unto guidance, many remain without ever being able to fulfill their desires. There is neither a system nor guidance for them to attain the path with the yearning for search. That is why he adopted a new style for dawa activities. To be specifically mentioned in the context are the events that occurred in the Tambalam Juma Masjid during the Tabligh activities. One Friday, Zuhoori Shah Noori and 30 young Murids reached the masjid for Juma prayer. The youngsters, who were clad in jubba and wearing skull caps, sat in front line with all due discipline and diligence. That was a new experience for the natives. After the Juma Namaz, Zuhoori Shah Noori delivered a sermon. Those who attended the Juma were diligently and respectfully listening to the sermon. The style of Zuhoori Shah was direct, saying everything without inhibition on any topic, especially topics related to religion. He was not ready to specially consider anyone or look in the face of people there. This style irritated many elite Muslims there. A gentleman from the Masjid administration committee did not like his direct way of sermonizing. They asked him to stop the sermon, but when those in the audience apprised him of the reality and the truth in Zuhuri Shah's words, he regretted his impolite behavior and sought for the forgiveness. He invited them all to his house for lunch and treated them well. Thereafter, whenever Zuhuri Shah reached that mosque, that gentleman was at the forefront of giving every facility to him. At that time, Zuhuri Shah Noori used to give talim at Tiruvallikoni Madrasa Hall in Madras. After talim, the Murids would assemble and engage in Mudakara, a gathering for feedback of speech. One day, Madurai V.M. Yusuf Sahib, a prominent leading politician with Indian Union Muslim League and a thinker, entered there. He was the brother of Pirbhai V.M. Muhyiddin. When Zuhuri Shah said that the audience could ask questions, Yusuf Sahib stood up and asked how scientific finding could be juxtaposed with the noble Quran. Zuhuri Shah clearly answered the question, quoting the Quranic verses. Yusuf Sahib kissed the hands of the Great One and demanded that the latter should recite the words of bayat to him. Noorul Mashaykh's Vadakara conference and the bayat of the Ulema. Since 1951, Noorul Mashaykh Sayyid Ahmad Muhyiddin Noori Shah Jilani set his foot in Kerala. He came to Kerala to participate in the annual celebration of Bustanul Ulum Madrasa in Vadakara in 1951. It was B. Kutti Hassan Haji, famous scholar and orator, who took the initiative to bring Sayyid Noori Shah to Vadakara. It was Tirur where Sheikhuna alighted from train on his way from Hyderabad. Ulema, Umara, and the Sadats gave a rousing reception to Sheikhuna at Tirur railway station. He then left for Vadagara on the same train. At the inaugural function, famous Sunni scholar in Kerala was present. On the following day, after the morning prayer, many persons, including ulama, waited for Sheikhuna outside his room. Many of them came there to receive ijaziyat from Sheikh Noori Shah. To the audience, including Paravanna Moidinkutti Musliar, a prominent Sunni scholar and the founding leader of Samasta Kerala Islam Mata Vidyabhyasa Board, the Sheikh put forth a question. Allah glorified be His name is without beginning. Were there anything with Him? No. Of which did Allah create this universe? Of Anasirul Arba, wind, fire, water, and earth. You agree that there was nothing with Allah and believe that Allah created the universe with Anasirul Arba. How could you correlate with these? Nobody could answer this question. He then told the audience, I have come here from Hyderabad to make you realize the hakikat of creations. At that instant, Paravanna Moidinkutti Musliar requested, you may grant us with that knowledge. There are some conditions. I will only give it to those who abide by these conditions. Whatever be the conditions, we will keep them. Then the ulama, including Paravanna Muhyiddin Kuti Musliar, received bayat from him. The grandson of Sheikh Muhyiddin radiallahu anhu. The fame and renown of Noorul Mashaykh spread all across Kerala thereafter. It was the towering intellectuals belonging to Samasta Kerala Jamiyatul Ulema, the prominent Muslim religious organization in Kerala, who were at the forefront of introducing Sheikh Noori Shah to Kerala. Keralites are usually fond of Ghawsul Alam Muhyiddin Sheikh radiallahu anhu. Muhyiddin Mala, which is a honorific in Arabic Malayalam verse about the Sheikh, is a famous work. Muhyiddin Mala used to be sung in almost all Muslim households. Therefore, hundreds of thousands of Muslims all across the state became the disciple of Noorul Mashaykh, the grandson of Sheikh Muhyiddin radiallahu anhu. Most of them received bayat from Sheikh Noorul Mashaykh, attained tariqah and tarbiyah via Zuhoori Shah Noori. Thousands of Muslims thronged the places where Zuhoori Shah Noori would reach. There were Sayyids, Ulema, Umeras, and commoners among them, and people from all class had been considerably influenced by Noorul Mashaykh since he set foot in Vadakara to participate the annual conference of Bustanul Ulum Madrasa in 1951. Owing to that influence and recognition, he got a large Tariqah conference held in Talasheri in 1955 with the cooperation of Sunni scholars and Umeras. It was in this conference that the idea of starting a Sharia college in Kerala was mooted by Noorul Mashaykh. In the audience that welcomed the suggestion with great appreciation, Sheikh Murids, Karachi Bapu Haji, and others offered contributions and cooperation to the college. Sheikh declared that E.K. Abubakar Musliar would be the principal of the proposed college. The declaration came to fruition in the form of Jamia Nooriya Arabic College, which was established at Pattikad near Perindalmanna. In the anniversary of the college every year, prominent persons, including ministers, have been participating. But in the conferences, in the beginning, the chief guest was Noorul Mashaykh. Muslims who lived at the time were aware of this fact. In the Tariqah conferences held at Nooradipalam in Malappuram in 1968 and on the banks of Nila River in Tirunavaya in 1972, in the conference of Samasta Kerala Sunni Youth Movement, Noorul Mashaykh participated. In those conferences, graced with the presence of prominent leaders of Kerala Muslims such as Sayyid Abdurrahman Bafaqi Tangal, Panakkad Sayyid Fukoya Tangal, and prominent Sunni scholars in Kerala, the center of attraction was Noorul Mashaykh. It is only with such nostalgic elation that one remembered the sight of Sayyid Abdurrahman Bafaqi Tangal, Panakkad Pukoya Tangal, other Sayyids and scholars including Shamsul Ulama E.K. Abubakar Musliar, receiving Sheikh Noori Shah at Pattikad railway station for the Jamia Nooriya annual conferences. That was a glorious example for the respect and love that Muslim leaders and scholars accorded to Sayyid Noori Shah. Religious scholars who were the disciples of Noorul Mashaykh. Among the ulamas, umaras and sayyids who became the disciples of Noorul Mashaykh, there were many prominent figures such as B. Kutti Hasan Haji, who was at the forefront of Samasta and was an exponent of the Tariqah movement. Sufi servant Edakulam Kammu Musliar, Korangat Abubakar Musliar, who was the Mudaris of Tirur Korangat Masjid and the first president of Kerala Silsila Nooriya, Mundambra Unni Moin Haji, a prominent scholar, disciple of Kanyat Ustad and the Mushawara member of Samasta Kerala Jamiyatul Ulema. T.P.H. Hussain Musliar Al-Maruf Nadri Shah Noori, the first ever Kerala Khalifa of Noorul Mashaykh. Parur Muhammad Musliar Al-Maruf Wahhabi Shah Noori from Vadakara, Thrissur. Muhyiddin Kunja Musliar from Malappuram. P. Haidar Musliar, also known as Kamalullah Shah Zuhoori, who was the figurehead of Silsila Nooriya in Kerala. Bapu Musliar, Mudaris in Manur and Sufi savant. Wakil Ibrahim Kutti Haji, who was the Khatib at Manatala Mosque in Chavakad. Abdul Fattah Baqavi, the prominent Khalifa in Madras. Haruni Shah Noori, Adna Pattanam. Tenu Musliar, a prominent Sufi scholar. And Elankulam P. Muhammad Musliar, president of Kerala Silsila Nooriya, who has recently departed this life. Al-Maruf Jamalullah Shah Zuhoori, the leaders of Silsila in the southern region. A.V. Ibrahim Musliar Al-Maruf Khalilullah Noori, Qadi of Kutai P.V. Abdullah Kutti Musliar, also known as Saifullah Shah Noori, as well as those among the living such as Ataur Rasul Al-Maruf Bilal Shah Zuhoori, the Khalifa in Madras, and the prominent active Khalifas in Kerala like K. Yusuf Nizami Shah Zuhoori Musliar, Noor Muhammad Musliar, Muhyiddin Kutti Musliar, Musa Musliar, Abdullah Munshi, and this writer are the disciple of Zuhoori Shah Noori. P.T. Hussain Baqavi at Kondotty has also received discipleship and tarbiyat of the great scholar and the savants. Umeras. Kallai Kunyipu Haji, who is buried in Karwarakundu, Karachi Bapu Haji, who contributed land which can be now priced at millions for Jamia Noori Arabic College through Noorul Mashaykh. Advocate Abdur Razak Haji at Ochira, who was a Khalifa. Kannamballi Bapu Haji, who is having his final rest at Mannarmala at Perindalmanna. Kiliyamannil Moidu Haji, who was the member of a famous Muslim family in Malappuram and was the Khalifa of Noorul Mashaykh, were the prominent community leaders who received the discipleship of Zuhoori Shah. Many Sayyids, including Varavamburam Ahmad Koya Tangal, were also his disciples. Zuhoori Shah Noori and the knowledge of Tawhid. There were incidents in which even religious scholars who had attained higher learning from reputed Islamic religious institutions were outsmarted in knowledge by Zuhoori Shah Noori. That was why scholars with sincerity of faith became ready to receive bayat from him. Once he was delivering talim at a madrasa in front of Pottiara Juma Masjid at Karwarakundu, Kerala. In the audience there was a Mundamra Unnimoyin Haji, who was one of the prominent scholars in Kerala. People asked him whether he was receiving bayat from him. I have come here not to receive bayat from him, but to hear his talk, he answered. But once Zuhoori Shah Noori completed his talk, Unni Moin Haji changed his mind. He received bayat from him. With him, Kallai Kunyipu Haji too received the bayat. Unni Moin Haji was a mudaris at Karwarakundu. He used to travel from Karwarakundu to Pottiara to listen to the teaching of Zuhoori Shah Noori. Unni Moin Haji even requested Zuhoori Shah Noori to start teaching at Karwarakundu once he completes his sessions at Pottiara. The sweetness of Talim. As requested by Unni Moin Haji, Zuhoori Shah Noori started Talim at Karwarakundu as soon as he is done with the Talim at Pottiara. Many scholars and commoners, including women, would come to Karivarakundu to be part of the Talim. The scholars include Abu Bakr Nizami, Mufattish of Samasta Kerala Islamada Vidyabhyasa Board, Regional Mufattish Manyakannan Abu Bakr Musliar, Koyapu Musliar Karivarakundu, Musa Musliar, Mudaris of Kuttati, Vallila Muhyiddin Kutti Musliar, Mudaris of Panattummal and Pallikandi Muhyiddin Haji, who was the Joint Secretary of Samasta Mushawara. The change in the women workers who were tappers at Karivarakundu rubber plantation was noticeable. They started wearing headscarf and started regulating their life according to the principles of Sharia. This was a perceptible change of Talim in Karivarakundu and Pottiara. Once the Talim was going on at the portico of Kunyipu Haji at Karivarakundu. The scholars and commoners who had come there to listen to the Talim were all seated on a mat on the floor. Zuhoori Shah Noori was seated on a chair while he was delivering the Talim. He then invited Unni Moin Haji to come close and be seated nearby him. The primary skill that a murid who receives bayat from Shaikh was to always remember Allah. It was about that particular skill that Zuhoori Shah Noori was mentioning during this particular ta'aleem. When Zuhoori Shah Noori started describing the greatness and esteem of Dhikr al-Anfas in the light of Quranic verses and sayings of the great ones, Unni Moin Haji was literally at the edge of his seat. Carried away by the scholarly treatment of the subject, Unni Moin Haji came out of the seat with due respect and sat with others on the floor. Then that great savant who had carved many disciples in the masjid darsas said, spilling his tears, "When I came to hear the batini, esoteric wisdom of the verses and hadiths, I myself had taught such things to my students. Now I realized that true wisdom was in what I studied, but beyond that. Having learned the practical methodology of Dhikr al-Anfas, remembrance through breathing, from Zuhoori Shah Noori, he became diligent thereafter at remaining in the dhikr. He strived to be careful about Shaykh treatment without minding about his wisdom and knowledge, and he enjoyed its benefits. He often described about an experience he had while traveling with full concentration on the dhikr al-anfas. Unni Moin Haji had served as a mudaris at Koduvally for a long time. Once he was traveling from his hometown to Koduvally on the bus and reading Dhikr al-Anfas all through the way. He fell asleep during the travel, later to be shaken up by a shoulder and wobble. There was moaning and wailing all around. His body and dresses were all soaked in blood. He then realized that the bus by which he was traveling upturned and met with an accident. With the help of the natives who rushed there hearing the news, he got up from the place where he fell. But he was not injured and knew that the blood that soaked his dress was that of his co passengers. He used to say that the reason why he did not know about the accident, why he was not injured, was his involvement in Dhikr al Anfas. In the beginning, Unni Haji thought that the gnosis of tariqah was only meant for scholars and should not be given to the commoners. His constant participation in the talim of Zuhoori Shah Noori corrected his notion. Later in public sermons he delivered, he would say, even if the wisdom related to Kalimat Tawhid is imparted to a new convert, none can misguide him, neither Iblis nor his father. Famous Wali Edakulam Kammu Musliar was a prominent disciple of Noorul Mashaykh. He used to conduct thus at Edakulam Masjid, where Hazrath Zuhoori Shah Noori used to lead the Talim. In the Talim, Hydros Musliar, the member of Samasta Mushawara and the secretary of Samasta Kerala Islamada Vidyabhyasa Board, actively participated. The crux of that Talim was the elementary lesson on the Nafi Isbat, certainty through negation, of Tawhid. The Talim would usually start after the night prayer, as he was insistent on taking part in this Talim. He usually kept away from other programs. Meanwhile, a person belonging to his mahal approached him with a request for officiating a marriage. The ceremony was scheduled at night. If he went to the function, he would miss Sheikh's talim, so he decided not to go to the wedding. And though he said that he would send his disciple to the function, the host did not agree with that. Finally, the host agreed to bring Hydros Musliar to the talim before the Isha prayer. The latter went to participate in it and came back in time. As soon as he came back, he told Zuhoori Shah Noori, ever eagerly, Sayyid, I have come here fast. And there was yet another incident. Zuhoori Shah Noori was leading the Talim at the Mirasul Ambiya Madrasa at Perindalmanna. Badusha Haji, a member of Jamia Nooria Arabic College Committee, was present in the audience. Three gentlemen, K.P. Usman Sahib, Secretary of Samasta Kerala Madhavidyabhyasa Board, Kakkodan Mammu Haji Wayanad, and Mannar Abdul Qadir Haji came there in search of Badusha Haji. When they reached the madrasa, they came to hear the talim of Zuhoori Shah Noori. The whole audience was listening to him in rapt attention. The hall was filled to the capacity. They stood at the entrance of the hall, transfixed by the speech. Zuhoori Shah Noori was then speaking repeatedly about the tasdiqat, truth statements about Amantu billahi wa malaikatihi. When they stood like that for hours, Zuhoori Shah Noori called out Badshah Haji and told him that he was wanted. Never mind, don't stop your speech. We want to hear this sermon. Then Zuhoori Shah Noori asked them to enter the hall and be seated there. Attracted by the essence of his topic, Usman Sahib requested Zuhoori Shah Noori to conduct the classes in Calicut as well. Then Zuhoori Shah Noori replied, Noorul Mashaykh entrusted me to give tabiyah to disciples, and I can't deliver bayan where there are no disciples. Vettikatiri Haidar Musliar and Elangulam Muhammad Musliar were the two great savants who tasted the knowledge and spiritual prowess of Hazrath Zuhoori Shah Noori. As they grew up under the tutelage of the Great One, they led the Tabligh works as the spearhead of the Silsila Nooriya in Kerala. Haidar Musliar was the disciple of E.K. Abubakar Musliar. He showed excessive interest and zest to live under the tutelage of and in cohabitation with the Sheikh. The tutelage and intimacy of Zuhoori Shah Noori, who became literally and metaphorically the sword of La ilaha illallah, made Haidar Musliar capable of overcoming all odds. When certain scholars belonging to Samasta opposed the tariqah, it was the support of Zuhoori Shah Noori that gave him courage and gusto to take challenges head on with the backing of Quran and Hadith and respond to the criticism effectively. Elangulam P. Muhammad Musliar was a towering scholar of Silsila Nooriya in Kerala. The great man describes the context in which he come forward to attain bayat from Zuhoori Shah Noori as follows. I knew that a detailed study of Kalimat Tawhid was essential on basis of text in Tasawwuf and in religion. I had become a disciple of Alua Abu Bakr Musliar and Kakkadipuram Abu Bakr Musliar with that in mind. But I did not see that the tariqah of these people conduct study on Tawhid rather than setting a stage of repetitive enunciation of the dhikr. When I was thinking of a way, I came to know that Zuhoori Shah Noori was conducting classes at Cherukara Juma Masjid, which was in my locality. When I listened to his talim, I knew that he possessed the knowledge of La ilaha illallah. I received bayat from him and lived in intimacy of this great servant. Elangulam Muhammad Musliar, also known as Jamalullah Shah Zuhoori, was a great scholar who had the fortune of living in intimacy of Zuhoori Shah Noori and of being subjected to Tabligh. That helped him spread the esoteric wisdom and the radiance of belief that he imbibed from Zuhoori Shah Noori to millions of people in and out of Kerala. Amminikad Abdurrahman Musliar too grew up in intimacy of Zuhoori Shah Noori and was subjected to his Tabligh. He was a great scholar, orator, and a strong exponent of Silsila Nooriya. He once derided the tariqah as something that gives bayat to fools. Abdurrahman Musliar, who was a mudaris in Cherkapparam, came to receive bayat from Zuhoori Shah Noori after the former came to hear the great man's talim. He took part in the class as an observer, but the sight of bayat and of teaching the dhikr of anfas as well as talim of Zuhoori Shah Noori on the Kalimatul Tawheed completely changed his mind. Tearfully, he begged Zuhoori Shah Noori to give him bayat. People who witnessed that sight are still alive. The talim of Zuhoori Shah Noori was equally effective for the scholars and common people. Everyone yearned to hear the talim and spread it in the areas where they had influence. Deeply influenced by the talim of Zuhoori Shah Noori at the Noorul Mosque in Kuttipuram, Ibrahim Khalilullah Shah Noori said, "Kindly continue the talim at Potennur Masjid also after this." He was working at that time as mudaris at Potennur Masjid. Ibrahim Noori was a renowned scholar and orator. Under his motivation, many scholars and commoners entered the fold of tariqah. There are many examples like this, and I am not going into the details. Prominence of Taqwa. Wealth and fame of his disciples didn't make even a slight change in the Great One. Allah says, "The respected among you are those who have taqwa." He held that verse close to his heart while dealing with his Murids. He would openly argue with anyone regarding the religion, and he did not mind the place and time at all. He did not mind what others would think of him. Once Zuhoori Shah Noori was having food at Kallai Kunyipu Haji's house. He then called Kunyipu Haji and said, "When you eat food from your plates, don't be proud. If Allah had bestowed this food on my plate, you would have to come to Manur, where Shaykhuna's house was situated. So be grateful to Allah." He was not ready to compromise on what the religion enjoined. He stuck to this nature and he was receiving disciples through bayat. Some people got shaken by the stringent training he provided. Some people who lost tolerance and patience even kept away from that. But, the, but this did not bother him at all. Whatever the Allah and Prophet enjoined, he was not ready to overstep those bounds. He tried to inculcate that scrupulousness to Sharia among his disciples as well. Once, Zuhoori Shah Noori was giving talim at Karuvarakundu, Kerala. It was heavy rain around. Two people came to his presence drenched in rain. They were coming from Perindalmanna and were not carrying an umbrella, though it was rainy season. While they were struggling to walk, they became proud of their sacrifice and said, "Today Sheikhna would mention about our travel during the talim." They dried up their head using a handkerchief and faced Zuhoori Shah Noori. He asked one of them, "Where did you perform Jummah prayer yesterday?" With much hesitation he said, "Hardly did I know the passage of time while I was chatting at Aminikad Kanka. It was a Maulavi who was an opponent of Silsila who was leading the prayer. I did not have time to reach Perindalmanna, so I did not go for Jummah." Hearing this, Zuhoori Shah Noori got carried away with anger, and he warned him, saying, "Are you sitting in the Kanka missing the Jummah prayer?" The Great One deplored the missing of Jummah prayer because the one who was leading the prayer was a critic of the Sheikh. The men of the tariqah have to regulate their lives in accordance with Sharia, and no adjustment or compromise whatsoever is allowed in it. He then led the talim about abiding the rules in Sharia, and that was a lesson for all. Qal and Hal, word and deed. Zuhoori Shah Noori always did what he said. There was no difference between the sayings and deeds in his life. In that respect, he followed the way of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, concord in Qal and Hal, saying and state. That was his specific trait. He yearned that his disciples too follow the same trait. He did not consider the station or stature of his disciples in that respect. Once, one Oravampuram Sayyid Ahmad Koya came to his presence. He was absent from Halqa and Talim for 2 weeks, and Zuhoori Shah chastised him, though the latter was from among the Sayyids. The scolding was so intense that the disciples who were hearing that became shocked. Then the Great One told them, "You may feel hurt. You may think why the Sheikh scolding Sayyid like this. So bear in mind that when I would be called in the presence of the Prophet, he would ask me, 'I have entrusted you someone from my family. What did you do with him?' When that question would be asked to me, what should I say? 'I have placated and pleased him,' or 'I have purified him.' He might be galled, but he fell in the morass of filth. The intelligent ones would purify it." Hearing this, the audience was deeply moved. Lifestyle. Zuhoori Shah Noori ordered and regulated his life as per the Quran and Sunnah. Born to a wealthy family and of a rich man, he lived a simple life after he came in touch with Noorul Mashaykh. Though he suffered many difficulties and lived in poverty for many days, he did not reveal that to anyone. He kept the lifestyle of Ibrahim ibn Adham radiallahu anhu, the great Sufi savant, the king of Balkha. Ibrahim ibn Adham radiallahu anhu forsook everything before he entered the path of Allah. Like that, born to a rich father, Zuhoori Shah Noori spent his wealth and trade in the way of Allah. He desired for the life of the poor and the death by miskin, the poorest. In his prayer, he always included the prayer of Prophet. Allah, you may grant me the life of a poor and let me die as a miskin, and you may gather me among the poor. Yelangulam Jamalullah Shah Noori, who was the president of Silsila Nooriya, said about this prayer, I have never heard this prayer from anyone but Zuhoori Shah Noori. Having devoted everything into the path of Allah, Zuhoori Shah Noori's family life was full of difficulties. But he did not express any feeling about that. Living in the dhikr and the fikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he only spoke about that topic to anyone he met. It was always his style to ask about the welfare of people whom he met. After the greetings, he would ask, You are fine, aren't you? If he met his Murids, he would ask them about the dhikr of Anfas and their situations. He did not mention about himself or the difficulties in his family. If he had said something about himself, that was meant as a lesson for them to learn. A highly respectable feast. I remember an incident Zuhoori Shah Noori recounted at the house of Kunyipu Haji. My wife once told me, We don't have rice, nothing at all to make curry. Children are all starving and you are not worried. If you don't have rice, prepare food with wheat. If they eat wheat, they will shit themselves. Let them shit. If they don't, it would be difficult. They'll have to go to hospital. What if they die by shitting themselves? You don't understand me. She was a Malayali and Zuhoori Shah was a Tamilian and could not understand her. That was what she mentioned. Saying this, she went inside. When I was outside home for taking ablutions, a team of people were heading to my house. That was a gathering of Murids at Aminikad, which is 60 kilometers far from his house, led by Haidar Musliar and Abdurrahman Musliar. They were carrying parcels of rice, sugar, vegetables, spices, and meat on their head and shoulder. When they reached my house and put down the parcels, I called out my wife and said, You have been in a bitter mood for quite some time, complaining about what we don't have here. Look, Allah is the Razik, the one who provides rizq. I have told you that He is nearer to us than our jugular veins. Look and see that Allah has sent our provisions through His servants. Allah is so noble. He has given us a highly respectable feast. Seeking murids for the need of the Shaikh. When he was recounting this story, we looked at each other. The Great One was giving a lesson from his own experience that Allah provides us and that He is closer to us than our jugular veins. By recounting that experience, he was making that knowledge certain in our mind. After hearing this, Kunyipu Haji's mind was slithering in pain. When I am living in higher situation, my Shaykh is living in poverty. With tearful eyes and sniveling throat, he said, If you have any difficulty, tell me. I will do anything needful. He said this with the pious intention of removing poverty and difficulties from the Sheikh's house. But hearing this, the Great One got carried away with anger. Is this what I have taught you? To seek the murid for the need of the Sheikh, to demand the murids to ask Allah for the same. Is this what you have learned so far? Allah says that He is nearer to me than my jugular veins and need. I forsake that Allah and come to your house from Manur, traveling a long distance for 2 kilograms of rice. Do repent.